Alright guys, HyDra here, and I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. The OpTic versus Toronto drama continues after their match in the CDL just a few days ago. This time though, on the content side, Toronto coming out with a brand new content idea, which is inexplicably rather similar to exactly what OpTic have done very successfully over these last several months. OpTic, kind of surprisingly for their usual social media strategy, clapping back at the Toronto guys as a result. Big back and forths last night. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. First of all, thought this is really cool as well, especially NadeShot's reaction to this. He's been asking for this for some time, and credit to, I think, Lawrence Mettner, the Treyarch guys that actually got this over the line, because you guys know if you're on a pro team, you're in the top 250, you'll get a banner effectively on your name on the top 250 leaderboards, and there's been some players, you know, let's say Scump was actually quite close, for example, to getting his skin in the game when they did the Nick Merck Simp the Tapman thing. That, of course, went rather wrong, so the Scump skin, which probably was in the works, is never going to arrive, unfortunately, now, but at least there is some recognition for these guys in the game. It must be cool for NadeShot, right? The game that he's spent so much of his life playing and building up and helping and everything like this, now getting his face in the game, so it says founder NadeShot Matthew Hay, and you know, NadeShot, here he is. It was also great to see Nade just grinding the game again in general, so yeah, this is NadeShot in the game, and I thought it was great that everyone has actually made this work, and long may it continue, and hopefully it can be the same for others as well when they also get to that position. I wanted to mention this on Dave Paddy. This was talked about yesterday, and I was like, okay, do I mention it or do I wait for Dave Paddy to say something? And then Dave Paddy hasn't said anything, so I don't really know what's going on here because he still hasn't tweeted anything to this effect. I mean, the last thing he retweeted was the team that he was on a few days ago getting ready for like the Challengers Cup or whatever, so I'm not exactly sure what is happening here. We know that it's difficult for a lot of these Challengers players if they don't really feel like a return back to the CDL is on the cards. It's understandable to step away. Obviously we know that GodRx, right, he was on the Ravens, and then after they decided to move on from him, he just said, you know what, I'm not going to bother with the Challengers grind again, I'm just going to call it a day from COD. So Dave Paddy is a pretty legendary player, really, right, for his record on the Florida Mutineers against OpTic for the last few years. So if he has retired, like, I just don't really know, because he hasn't actually said it. So I'm kind of surprised why this has come out before Dave Paddy has announced it officially, but I guess we'll see over the coming days. Now, some roster changes, though, are probably almost certainly going down. Now, Fame tweeted this out. I don't know what it means. It's a GIF. It's only a couple of seconds long, but there is a feeling that, you know, could this be indicating that Fame might be on his way out of the Los Angeles Grillers? It could mean anything, but that team has been a disaster as of late, and I think it's quite clear that for many teams, is there really a point going to the major just to get top 12 and then making a change? Are you better off making a change now? Now, it's a weird time, of course, to do it, right? Because usually teams don't make changes in the middle of a stage when they've got 5 weeks of qualifiers, as we now have. Doing 4 weekends and then making a move feels like, well, we might as well stick it out. But let's not forget, Ravens did this during stage 1. They, obviously, Real couldn't go to the major because of the visa stuff, so they got TJ, and then they dropped GodRx for felony, and it worked. Sure, in hindsight, you might think, well, they might need some further moves to actually make that team competitive based on what we've seen over the last few days, but certainly that was a good move at the time, and they were able to get a couple of players that were top guys from challenges before the rest of the league got the opportunity to do so. So if you're the Los Angeles Grillers, it's something you've got to consider. Would I get rid of Fame if that was the only change? Like, to me, if you're blowing up the Los Angeles Grillers, you've probably got to make a two-man move. These are the stage 2 KDs, top 10, bottom 10, and it's kind of crazy, right, that I think in stage 1, there was a time where all of the representatives in the top 10 KDs were all on the top 4 theoretical teams. We do, however, have Attach and Nero actually represented from Vegas, which is pretty impressive. Cell topping the way, though, with his standard 1.3, but at the bottom, it's somewhat more spread out and somewhat less pretty, really. Couple of players from the Seattle Surge, Afro's Dana, of course, from Thieves, couple of players from Miami, couple of players from Ravens, Purge is here as well, actually, but then Assault at a 0.85, and look, 2018 world champion, but his record over the last few years has not been pretty, let's be real, and there's been lots of talk that if there is going to be a change to be made, Flames is on their bench, potential AR talent. Flames and Estriel go way back. I'm surprised they haven't done that already. Maybe they will be doing it in the near future, right? But yeah, for Gorillas, I don't know how much it's going to cost them to make a move. That's the other point. There's a feeling that if you do terminate a player's contract and sign a new one, you've still got to pay that player maybe a couple of months extra salary. I don't know, something like that. So I don't really know if Gorillas, given the fact that they don't want to spend a penny more than they have to, will actually bother to make a move here. But if they don't, I mean, they they are just asking for trouble, aren't they? Surely, given the way that things have currently gone. People, of course, as well then talking about Pentagram, right? Because we discussed him yesterday on the Boston Beach Academy, where he might go. Apparently, he's just going to be unavailable for the Cup coming up shortly, but he's still with those guys. So yeah, it doesn't seem like, unfortunately, for Pentagram, he's got an opportunity as of yet, but time will only tell on that one, because teams are certainly going to blow it up after the major. Guess there's the question whether they'll blow it up before the major, but you know, there's only a week or so left, so they might just decide to ride it out. But I can probably tell you pretty confidently which are some of the teams that are going to get top 12 that are going to blow it up anyway. So, you know, there's an argument that just preempt it, and therefore you can at least get the players you might want before everyone is clamoring for those players at the actual event after Miami. That's usually how it goes. I mean, the amount of times that EasyMac has told me that when he used to track the challenger stats, some team would get eliminated on Friday, and then EasyMac would get a DM saying, hey, you know, have you got the challenges data, the spreadsheets for the weekends? Might want to have a look at that. So let's talk about some of this content stuff, right? We know that more content in the space is better, and there's many players that have good personalities. We don't always get to see it necessarily, depending on the level of content that the organization decides to do. Unfortunately, the way that it stands, many of these teams just aren't going to bother with that, right? Gorillas, obviously they've done stuff in previous seasons. Vegas, for example, have never been a team that's even bothered. They generated their announcement graphic using AI at the start of the season. So that's kind of the level that some of these teams are operating on. Envoy says, Miami ready, here with the boys. I don't know what Insight's got here on in the background, but that seems pretty good. But I also dropped this yesterday. Coming soon, microphone emoji, you know, silent face emoji, whatever, hashtag so ultra. So here they are in the Creator Lab at their facility. Now, this, of course, was very recognizable to many people initially, right? Because it is effectively the same as OpTic's Game Chat podcast. Now, it's a bit more scuffed, obviously. They're not in quite as nice of a setup as the OpTic guys have. We'll see the comparison to that in a second. They've got some piece of paper strapped up here, I guess, to show the topics. They've got, you know, just bottles of water on the desk. They're holding the mics. They've got the nice, you know, Shure mics that I've got right here, but, you know, they're holding them up. They don't have the mic stands. They don't all have iPads on the table, and this table is not symmetrical. So, look, they've put something together. And obviously my initial reaction to this is absolutely fantastic. More content in the scene, the better. And this style of content, this, what OpTic called the game chat, but is effectively sit down with the team, chat about contemporary issues in the space for 45 minutes. You know, the vibes obviously are very good. You can see that in the OpTic camp, especially even the one that the Thieves have done. I'm also interested that, you know, Toronto, I wouldn't say Toronto have got backlash for this. I just think people are poking a bit of fun, to be fair, at the comparisons. But it's not like Thieves haven't done this as well. Like, this is the Thieves guys when Cammy was there, when JoeDeceives was there. Here they are with Ghosty and Afro. They've done a couple of these now, just discussing things. And here they are, sitting down. They've got a pretty similar setup to what OpTic have, and they chat about stuff. It's just great content, and it's just such an easy win to make stuff like this. It doesn't take that long. It's kind of good for the team culture and the team chemistry and vibes anyway, like just getting them to sit down. Any team should be doing this. Like, every single team should have this as a podcast episode, because people will watch it, they want to know what the pros have to say, because especially Scrappy, he'll always give his takes on certain teams, and I'm sure that when this comes out publicly, it's going to be very interesting. And also for many of the teams in the league, you just don't get to see the personality too often behind some of these players. Like, there's some good personalities out there, but the organizations and the players themselves, right, if they don't stream or whatever, don't necessarily do their best to get this out publicly. Like, I think the New York Subliners, if they did this, it would bang as well. Like, I think that would be fantastic. HyDra, even FaZe could do it, right? All of the organizations could do this. They do their content shoots, but this is just like such an easy, it makes so much sense. I'm really surprised why no more teams than OpTic and Thieves have done this concept so far. But OpTic, in some sense, kind of pioneered this idea, at least in this space, since they started the Game Chat episodes a little while ago now. And, you know, Toronto are catching up, and here they go. They've got the cameras. They've got a couple of different camera angles. Like, it's a bit scuffed, isn't it, right? Compared to the OpTic setup, it's a little bit, you know, leaves something a little bit more to be desired. This is obviously what the OpTic guys have it on. I guess I'll just share a screenshot of that right about here, because this is what OpTic come back with, coming soon, hashtag brick by brick. So this, of course, is the OpTic setup. They've got, it's not even iPads, is it? It's just a straight up TV on the desk. They've got everything clamped on. The chair makes a lot of sense, or the table makes a lot of sense. And you know, this is like a kind of a next level of what Toronto have done. And they have all the different camera angles and stuff like this so they can run what is a very good show. But fundamentally, it's a pretty simple show, right? You get the guys to sit down and vibe for 45 minutes, talk about the various topics, and it's always going to be entertaining, especially if the team actually gets along well. So I think it should be a no-brainer for so many other teams to do this. But of course, the implication is, right, that Ultra tweeted this out and just said, yeah, it's coming soon. Like, here we go. Good little podcast idea. And OpTic are like, hang on a second. You know, this is kind of like our whole thing. Now, it's not like OpTic own the copyright to this type of format, but maybe they were expecting Toronto to give them a bit of credit or something like that. I don't really know. And it's funny for OpTic, right? Because the social media strategy of OpTic is, from a competitive perspective, they never really clap back at people. That's just how it's tended to be. I think Hex's opinion has been that OpTic is the #1 team. They are the biggest brand, and therefore, if anyone else is coming at OpTic or roasting them, or if like any of the social media teams are using OpTic for impressions, as it were, then Hex's opinion has kind of been, well, you know, they're using OpTic to try and like catch up to our level. Whereas if OpTic start talking trash on other teams as a social media team, then they're kind of like stooping down to those other teams' levels. And maybe there's a point to that, maybe there's not. I don't know. I think OpTic maybe should be a bit more adventurous in their social media activities at times. But in the content side, I think it's free game, right? Like in the competition side, they want to maintain some level of, you know, not really going at other teams. But when it comes to content, I think, you know, the floodgates are potentially open, right? So they're definitely poking fun here at the Toronto Ultra for their setup. Kenny's got the crazy headset here as well. And arguably saying, look, our setup's a bit better than yours, and we actually came up with the idea initially. So some funny responses to this. Wow, it's like the Ultra podcast, no way, but it's obviously in green instead. And as Toronto say, guys, don't worry, we cleared it with the green wall. We are also allowed to have a podcast, right? So I'm sure most of the reaction to this was in jest, really, on people saying, oh, I can't believe Ultra would like make a podcast that just copying OpTic. Like, I'm sure that most people's opinion is it's good to have the content, right? And maybe some people do think that Ultra should have given them some credit or whatever, right? I don't really care. I think it's just good regardless. And of course, it's not like OpTic were necessarily the first to do this type of thing either, and just podcasts in general. Like, here's another one from OpTic. Denny here, the Hex Experience debut, the 1st of April 1994. OpTic X paved the way for what we now call podcasts, right? So lots of reaction to this based on everything that's happened. And as Toronto say, glad we can influence you guys. This will be great for the league. More content for more teams. So pretty funny back and forth. But I think at the end of the day, this is just pretty good content as far as I'm concerned, because Toronto are going to come out there with the bang. We'll see what these guys say, because the likes of Envoy, when he was on OpTic, you got to see quite a lot of his personality. And then when he went to Thieves, there was a bit less of that. And now you don't really get too much of the personality coming out on display. The players that don't tend to stream, and there isn't so much content coming from the orgs, but this is going to be a banger for sure. So very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. And just wanted to close out with this, man. It's end of an era, really, for Crone and the CDL Intel account. If you guys aren't aware, when the COD burner was going around back in 2018, Crone was the man putting all of that stuff on Twitter and letting everybody know what the COD burner had to say. That account eventually became CDL Intel, which has like well over 350,000 followers almost. And Crone's decided, I think he basically retired from like the reporting, the leaking last year, and now he's kind of said, it might just be time to move on from this account in general. So yeah, he's got some requirements of people that he might want to take over it. But yeah, obviously wishing Crone the best. I'm sure that we'll be staying in touch. And an absolute icon of the scene for about the last 6 years. So very much interested in your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.
Get pet.
I want a fucking cat, bro. My wife is a bitch, dude.
Whoa.
No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, wow.
No, she's allergic, bro. She's fucking throwing her cash. That's the mother of your child. Get a grip. Listen, bro. If she's acting like a bitch, I'm gonna call a spade a spade.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
you guys want me to mince words? She's the woman that I'm close, the person that I'm closest with the most. Like, you gotta check her fucking dope sometimes.